It's extra drama for book number 59, In Love Again. Hello, Gladiators. Welcome back to a bonus episode of Sweet Valley Diaries. We do the bonus episode every other week after we read the main book. I haven't reset the idea of extra drama in a very long time, but that's what it is. And there's always more to say. You know, there's always more to say about the books than about the world. And I am joined once again by Libbie Hawker. Hello, Libbie.
Hello.
I know you said you were a Jessica, but one very Elizabethy trait that you have is that you are a writer.
True, I am. I am a professional novelist. I make all my living from writing books. So yes.
That's so cool.
It's super fun.
And in particular, you write historical fiction, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I do.
Have you ever written anything set in the 80s?
I have not. The closest I've gotten is 1975, so getting fairly close. Yeah, it is pretty close, but no, nothing in the 80s. I mean, technically the 80s are not historical fiction yet for the adult market.
That makes sense. I mean, it was a long time ago, but it was, 30 to 40 years ago, right? It's like nostalgia.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a difference, I would say, just as a non-professional, as a consumer, a difference between the sort of like nostalgia for an era that we lived through and remember, or that much of the population did, versus like time gone by,
Yeah, exactly. So the cutoff just from an industry standpoint is if it was set 50 years or longer prior to the date it was written, then it's technically historical fiction. And if it's sooner than that, then it's technically not. So even my 1975 book is technically not historical fiction, but like it's close enough. So whatever.
Yeah, soon. I mean, I guess if you just kept it in the hopper for just like 4 more years.
Yep.
What are some other eras that you've written about?
I've done a lot of 19th century kind of frontier stuff, and I have more of that coming too, with some future books that are under contract but not published yet. And I've done a lot of ancient history too. I've done like 10 books set in ancient Egypt and a couple other sort of ancient settings. And I have one World War II novel as well. So yeah, kind of bounce around a little bit.
That's so cool. One of the things that came up in the main episode was the way that every once in a while in these books, there's something that is just like so of its time that pops up. In this book, it was not just the existence of like car CD player, which, we do still have in the modern era, but the way that it was a signifier of like extreme luxury and wealth.
Yes.
I sure didn't have a CD player in 1989. I don't remember when I got my first CD player, but it was quite a few years after that. I mean, I was also 6, so I wouldn't have had a CD player. But like in our household, it did not exist yet.
I remember I would have been in 4th grade, so it would have been probably 1990, 1991. That was when the first kid in my class got a CD player at home. And I remember he got it for Christmas, like his family got it as their big family gift, and everyone in the class was like, "Oh my god, you have a CD player, that's so cool!" Like we were all losing our minds over the fact that we knew someone with a CD player, and this was like a couple of years after this book was written. So yeah, a CD player in a car in 89 would have been just like crazy wealthy.
Yeah. Well, not to get on too much of a detour here, but do you remember what your first CD was, or like first couple CDs?
I sure do. It was Nevermind by Nirvana. Yep.
Oh, cool. Very cool. My first Nirvana CD was In Utero. I was had a like Columbia House membership or like BMG or whatever. And I remember my mother had to write an angry letter to them once because I was having trouble like canceling, and they were like, this person is a child. Like she let me have it. She was like, you can try it if you think you can. It was like having a pet or something. But yeah, I got like 10 CDs for a penny or something, and I got Aerosmith's Big Ones, and I got Mariah Carey. It was like every artist that I could like, that I recognized who they were, was like how I amassed my 10 CDs. But no, my first CDs, I think my very first CD was like a Beach Boys greatest hits album.
Nice.
And then I had Weird Al Yankovic's The Food album, which is a compilation of his songs that are about food.
I remember
Those
that
were my
one,
first
yes.
couple CDs.
Those were the days.
Well, but the reason that I was thinking about those little details, that's a real delight in reading these books. But of course, those are contemporary to when these books were written. You know, they are that's like part of the fun, right? Is this like rich details that made more sense when they were put into the book than they do now, and like what that tells us about the time. But I can imagine that there's a lot of like research that goes into giving your historical fiction books that kind of richness.
Yeah, I do a lot of detail research for them. Yeah, and I don't do it ahead of time when I'm writing, because if I stop and, you know, if I spend too much time researching, then I'll never actually write the book, you know?
Sure.
So I do the research to kind of get a foundation for sort of what's going on with my setting politically and socially, until I can sort of figure out what my main characters are kind of doing with that stuff in the background to their lives. Like, how do they relate to, you know, is there a war going on, or what kind of, you know, like when I've done some frontier fiction, like who's being displaced by colonization, and how is that going to, what's that going to look like in this location where my character is? Like, are people going to be moving through this area, or are there going to be conflicts, you know, whatever. So as soon as I sort of figure out all those sort of bigger picture pieces to the puzzle, then I start writing the book. And then what happens is I'll be in the middle of a scene and I'll be like, okay, I need to add some color here to make it feel authentic. So then I'll stop and just kind of research long enough to come up with just those little tidbits that I need to drop in to make it feel like an actual setting. So that's how I manage it that way. And I'm so glad to be doing this job in the modern era when I have access to like Google and stuff. Because if I had to stop and go to a frickin' library every time I needed one of these details, it would take me like years and years and years to write a book. It just takes so long.
That's such a good point. All that is so interesting. I suppose though, if we lived in a different era, it would be harder for other people to do the work that would be required to like fact check you, right?
Yes, and they do fact check. I get emails and reviews all the time that are like, actually, you got this detail wrong. And like most of the time, I did not get that detail wrong.
Yeah.
You're just mistaken about it. So yeah, that's one of the many job hazards of being a historical novelist, is I get like probably 3 or 4 emails a week where someone's like, you got this thing wrong. And I'm like, am I going to argue with this person, or am I just going to delete the email? It's like 50-50. It's a coin toss every time it happens. So,
oh,
yeah.
Wow. I worked for a producer for a while who also had written a book that was set in 1941, and like the only historical detail emails or comments that she got were about weapons. Like, it was always just about like whether or not a particular person would be carrying a particular gun in this place at this time, or like how the gun was loaded, or like some sort of logistical, like historical arms related issue.
Yeah, the historical weapons people are super nerdy about their thing, and they will always try to call you out on stuff all the time. And, you know, the only way you can respond to that is it's fiction. Like, yeah, I'm not writing fact. I'm not writing biography or whatever. Like, it's fake. It's a made-up story. So I faked it. Deal with it.
That's good. That's good. That seems very healthy. Well, so how was it different to write about 1975 then, like a such more recent era?
I liked it a lot. It was a real departure. It was so much easier to research all these details that I needed. What was really nice is I was able to actually contact some people who had been like teenagers and in their early 20s in the specific town I was writing about during this time period. Yeah, so I was able to say like, hey, can you help me out? Can you tell me, like, do you remember, was the pool in the park at this time, or did it get built after 1975? And they were like, oh no, I was 15 in 1975 and I had my 16th birthday party at that pool, so I remember it was there. I'm like, yes, like, it's like the easiest research I've ever done. So it was nice to be able to get that kind of sort of immediate feedback from people who had really clear memories of that setting. It was great. And then I also, like, I made up a fake restaurant for this town, and my copy editor was like, I can't find any documentation of this being a real restaurant in this town. Like, you need to verify this. I'm like, it's fake. I made it up. Like, I appreciate your diligence and your attention to detail, but also it's fiction.
Oh, well, that's especially funny given our Sweet Valley High focus, like our main focus here, just to bring it back to Sweet Valley High, because like, can you imagine some clerk somewhere fact checking any? I mean, like, we have had this whole big debate recently, or I say recently, but it's been ongoing since the inception of the podcast about where is Sweet Valley. And while I was really excited when I got this clue that they had to go north to get to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Then somebody wrote to me about some other book that they read where Sweet Valley was between Los Angeles and like Santa Barbara or something. And now we have Sheffield Eastman going to work in Santa Barbara. And in this book, Courtney Kane invites Todd to a Lakers game, which is a moment that never gets returned to. But he says maybe.
Yeah. And then she takes that as an actual date. She's like, I have a date with Todd.
Yeah. She goes and tells Dominique. But it's like, if I were Dominique, like, can we talk a little bit? I'm sorry, this is really all over the place.
Totally.
Can we talk about Dominique Roy for a second? Who is she?
Definitely.
What's her story?
She is an enigma. Dominique is the Judas Iscariot of Sweet Valley High. I love the scene. I love it so much where she's like, Courtney, you can't cheat in the battle of the schools. That's wrong to cheat. And then Courtney immediately is like, I'll give you that sweater you like that's black with a green border. And Dominique is instantly like, yes, I will cheat with you. And I left in my notes that as 30 pieces of silver were to Judas, so is a black sweater with a green border to Dominique Roy. So yeah, she's a mystery, but she is Courtney's reliable henchwoman.
That's really beautiful. That sounds like an author's commentary. Was it different reading? I know you've been reading Sweet Valley High novels. Was it different reading it, knowing that you were going to come talk about it on the podcast? A
little bit. I mean, I was definitely paying more attention to ridiculous things in it. I was like highlighting a lot.
Yeah, it's so. Yeah. I what I've been doing lately is like dog-earing pages and then going back to the dog ears, because what inevitably happens with me is that at the outset of the book, I flag everything. I'm like, people are going to need to understand. The listeners will want to know all about. This is the recap of the last book, and this is what. And then as you go on, it gets much less frequent. And then when I go back and see everything that I marked, I'm like, yeah, I don't need to say all of that. Yeah. I mean, that might not. It might be surprising to hear, considering how many readings that there are, especially in our last episode, the book 59 episode. But yeah, I don't have anything as poetic as that in my notes for this one. I think my best note just says Courtney Kane straight up Bond villain speech, which is.
It's true though. It's true. I love how evil Courtney is. She just goes full bore. She fully commits to this role of being the villain, and I just love it.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. It's nice to have the extra layer of richness, of snobbiness, of like evilness, like to just sort of amp it up a little bit, and it makes Sweet Valley seem relatively normal by comparison, even though what happens in Sweet Valley from week to week is so outlandish.
So yeah, I do love the way, I mean, you can kind of feel in this book especially, the ghostwriter was like, how do I make these rich kids seem like they're terrible for being rich when we've already established for 58 other books that pretty much everyone else in this cast is also a rich kid? Like, how do I up the ante on these particular rich kids? And their answer to that is for one of the girls to ask Lila why she doesn't go to Lovett, and she's like, Daddy thinks I need to understand what it's like in the real world, so that's why she's at a public school. Like, first of all, Sweet Valley High is not the real world. My God. Everyone here is hot and perfect 100% of the time. Yeah. It's not the real world.
Jessica turns that observation. I don't know if she voices this out loud, but when she's thinking about going to Lovett, she's like, I think I'm good on real world. I don't think I need to learn any more about the real world. Yeah. this is a town where we don't even know where it is. So then the idea of like, what about this Dairi Burger? You know, like, where could that be? Like, is that a real representation? I think these books were written on the East Coast, I believe, about the West Coast. And I think that it shows sometimes. And they try to cover their asses a little bit. But like, there's a part at the country club where Elizabeth is observing that everything is like covered in mahogany, and that it seems more like something from, I don't know, the Hamptons or something than what you would see in California.
It feels like an East Coast person's vision of what California is like the weird obsession with clams. I mean, there's so many clams mentioned throughout all of Sweet Valley High, and like, I've been West Coast my whole life. No one eats this many clams. No one's into clams like this out here. It's so weird.
I had some mussels recently.
Yeah, mussels are okay. I just like, we don't get that into clams. We don't have clam bakes. We don't do clam digs. Like, they do that on the East Coast, and out here it's like, whatever, clams will squirt at you when you walk around on the beach, and that's all anybody thinks about them. It's just like not part of the culture here to eat clams that much.
No.
I briefly started a hubbub on Twitter several months back when I did a whole thread on the hot clam special in Sweet Valley High, and how it haunts me, because I was rereading one of the early books where they first described the hot clam special, and it's like being eaten with a fork, and it's a mixture. And I was like, what the fuck is this? What is this? I thought it was fried
gross.
Clam strips. It's so, clams. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, and then you start wondering, like, did the authors even know what they were describing?
I don't think they did.
Gladiators, in case it's unclear, when we were talking about the hot clam special at Dairi Burger at the end of book 59, that was a joke. The hot clam special does not come up in this book. The hot clam special has never returned as being explicitly mentioned. They're always eating burgers and milkshakes. A lot of burgers and milkshakes at the Dairi Burger.
But somehow I feel the hot clam special is always lurking in the background. It's waiting for me.
I like that. It's it adds a certain richness to their obsession with the Dairi Burger, which really it really does have a lot of metaphorical resonance for these books. Like, what does the Dairi Burger as a place mean? It represents being down to earth. It's kind of blue collar, which is ironic because it's only blue collar in the sense of Lovett Academy being white collar. Like, it's not literally blue collar. It's because, you know, the Wakefield's parents are a lawyer and a interior designer.
Right.
So, but it's just like normal, like quote unquote, like regular people stuff.
Yeah, in terms of world building from a writer's perspective, the Dairi Burger is definitely like sort of the anchor point for like normal American teenage life. Like, that's where the characters always sort of retreat to when they need things to come back to normal. They go to the Dairi Burger. So it's kind of a good device from a writer's perspective.
Yeah. Well, and that metaphor is honestly built into this book, because there's that scene where Todd is coming to meet Elizabeth at the Dairi Burger, and he's half an hour late, and, you know, then they get into the fight and they break up, and it's like, this is the place that you claim to care about, Todd. You know, you said you'd rather be. They leave the party. They leave Courtney Kane's party and don't have the dinner that they're all supposed to have together, and instead go to the Dairi Burger.
Yeah.
Like, it represents like just normal people stuff.
Yep. It's the Dairi Burger is the paperback version of sucking on a chili dog outside the Tasty Freeze. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, you mentioned your Twitter. Do you want the Gladiators to be able to find you on Twitter, or we don't?
Sure, if you want
this
to.
Whole part out.
Yeah, no.
If not.
I'm on Twitter at the Libbie Grant, and on Instagram at Libbie Hawker, LibbieHawker. So yeah, you can find me there.
Fabulous, and I hope that you will find Libbie there, Gladiators, and you can find Sweet Valley on Twitter at Sweet Valley. And sometimes there's some crossover between what Libbie tweets and Sweet Valley, like when she's tweeting about hot clam specials.
Indeed.
For my own sanity, I don't look at Twitter on a daily basis, so sometimes I'm a little bit late to the tweet storm parties. But
it's all right. It's better that way. Twitter is a hellscape.
Yeah. I have a tweet recently on my own personal Twitter, which is @Flaxbart. I joined Twitter really early. I was like an early adopter of Twitter, and like I feel like I wrung everything I wanted to wring out of it a long time ago. And then I had a phase that was like I was using it exclusively to like complain about companies being bad, and because you could get attention, right, from corporations by tweeting about them. That time is mostly past now too. And now I go back and I remember sometimes like, oh, this is fun. I'm looking at the tweets. I love it so much. And every single time I get to a point where I'm like, oh, and I have to close the app now because I'm angry.
Oh, yeah.
Like I have made myself either depressed or angry, and it's time to take a break now for the next week or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, Twitter sucks. Yeah, for sure. I'm really only there because I like to harass Matt Gaetz because I hate him so much. So, you know.
He's a real Campbell Rochester, you know?
He is, for sure. I will not be surprised at all if he does his perp walk to jail in a blue cotton cardigan and madras shorts. So we'll see how it goes.
I mean, that seems like as good a place to end this extra drama as any. Libbie, thank you again so much. Gladiators, thank you for listening. Tune in next week for the season finale of season 6 of Sweet Valley Diaries. It will be called That Fatal Night. And I remember you can tell a friend about the podcast. Yeah. You can email me at sweetvalleydiaries@me.com. And you can find all this Sweet Valley stuff at sweetvalleydiaries.net. Remember to check out Libbie's podcast.
Yes. It's called Gotta Grow Up Sometime, and it's about a very stupid teen soap opera called Swan's Crossing. You'll love it.
I'm excited to check out both the podcast and the show. Maybe, is it an episode by episode thing? Could we do like
It is. Yeah, okay, it's episode by episode. Great. You can follow along, yeah.
I find that to be a fun way to watch or revisit shows. You know, so you can watch the show and you can listen to the episode.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe people are doing that with Sweet Valley High novels. I wish they were easier for you to find if that's the case, but most of them are on Amazon. Here I am accidentally doing an Amazon commercial again. I do not want to do that. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, Gladiators. Yay.
Thanks, Gladiators. Bye.
Bye. I
new person.
Would really love to come back for the werewolf. Jessica's Dating a Werewolf book. That is one of my all-time favorites, and like 100% it's my favorite because they keep talking about a dog that's killed whose name is Poo Poo, and they just keep talking about Poo Poo over and over again.
Wow.
It makes me so happy.
Oh man, well, I feel like that's probably not going to be for a while.
Yeah, it's a while down the line, so I'll come back before that too, but I totally want to call dibs on the werewolf book.
All right.
It's so good.
Well, that sounds great.